Ian, we got a Patreon, don't we?
Patreon.com/CU podcast. You go. You kindly give us some money, and we have a full video podcast that you get. You get to vote in poll topics. We do hangouts.
We do a writing.
I do writing.
And now we have exclusive podcasts.
Bonus podcasts.
Bonus snippets between 15 and 30 minutes. You get to hear us yammer on about other stuff.
Snackins. Yeah. Bonus snacks.
The cracklins. A twisted root. And this is our poll this week. In second place, what video game character do you look up to, admire? 27%. And in first place, 73% on the tail end of our last topic. Why is it important to call out nostalgia bait game projects, Ian?
Well, I think the main reason to call them out is because they rarely seem to be successful. Almost all of them seem to fall apart, and they oftentimes seem to come from people who have spent a lot of times on message boards or were once popular in the video game industry or community. And I think they often way underestimate how much work and effort is required to go into these things. We saw it with the RVGS/Chameleon, where, one of the things that we constantly laughed about with that was Mike Kennedy saying in earnestness, not joking, that he already had the shells. The hardest part was done.
Which was insane, because the console shape is the last thing you worry about.
Maybe it's expensive. Yes, getting a tool, like getting a model tooled and getting all the tooling done is expensive, but it is not the most important fucking part. In no way, shape, or form is it the most important part. He looked at that and just went off and said, I'm almost there. And you can tell he looked at that and he just sat there. I don't know if he was drinking or smoking or maybe he was sober, but his imagination ran wild with it. And he decided he had all the skill needed to put something in that box that could play games.
Let's put a finer point on that. There is a very good chance the Coleco Chameleon would never have existed as a product if Mike Kennedy did not get the Jaguar shell mold. It might have never even been a twinkle in his eye.
Right, but that was the part that gave him the spark.
Which is insane.
I'm halfway there.
Which is insane, by the way, to say that. I think it's interesting that the track record of these projects. And someone commented, well, there's some the good nostalgia-driven products. A lot of them are game-related. But when I say nostalgia bait, I mean something that drags you in just on the surface, being like, hey, remember when? Play again, which was the, Chameleon retro tagline. Like just, nostalgia. Throw nostalgia at you. We cloud your judgment. You remember when you were 4? I can give you that same feeling again when you're 40 or when you're 35. And you're going to feel exactly the same way, but it's going to cost some money. So,
and I hated that tagline too, but I hated it because for the type of person he was trying to get, that's the sort of schlocky, say nothing bullshit that works.
Yes, it's used car salesman stuff.
Yeah.
It's used car salesman stuff. And we've seen it with other projects since then. Absolutely. So this is why I put down a few notes here about accountability, delivering what's promised, and nostalgia blinding and clouding judgment. Accountability. A lot of times when these companies or ventures come up, they're companies that either didn't previously exist or maybe they did other things. We talked about the Dreamcade before. Mm-hmm. There was a company, and that guy's cut after me before. They did arcade cabinets, like custom arcade cabinets, and then they said, we're going to do the Dreamcade. We're gonna sell you a console where you can like scan.
That was the one with the ROMs, like you could search for ROMs.
Yeah,
on,
you would get a photo of a game. It would download somehow legally the ROM to your console to play. It's like that's things like that, and a lot of people got taken in by things like that. And then the problem is with a lot of these companies is that they don't worry about the ecosystem of their product even after it launches, or even if it's quality. The retro engine Sigma, some of those people, or some of those fucking consoles were smoking. They didn't even look like what they were supposed to look like. They were supposed to look like little Ataris. They looked up silver, shitty Genesis systems.
Yeah, I remember they changed that shell.
So but it doesn't matter, especially if it's an Indiegogo, because once it's out, they got your money. I mean.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people need to really be aware of with this is, like you said, the accountability. One, these people don't have a past in doing this. And two, and you see it with the Intellivision Amico too. So much of the talk makes it sound like, even if it's not directly said, that launch is endgame. Just getting it out there is endgame. Support afterwards is not even remotely even thought of. For a lot of these people, they want to get the project out and move on to the next, nostalgia bait.
A lot of times these companies make enough money to like make it worth their time to put out a shoddy but it's not big enough where there's enough complaints and where people really go after them. For example, going back to the Dreamcade Replay here, they raised $228,000 to 1,600 backers back then. So for them, that was enough for them. We got that. And then you look at the updates in the community, and their last update was like, let's see, a year and a half ago. There was a patch in 2019, a patch update moving forward. When I heard from this when this came out, people were not happy when this came out. There was bugs, they needed patching. But it's like at some point they can just say, okay, we're done. We don't have to continue with this. It's not worth our time and money. If you complain, well, there's only 1,600 of you.
Right.
It is what it is. We moved on. When again, a game console is an ecosystem that has to be supported and loved and cared for and nurtured, like Baby Spike, or it'll bite you on the chin. So that's the one reason why we feel that it's necessary to point this stuff up. I think it's a disservice to the consumers, and it's also an insult to my intelligence. Others would say, well, it's just video games. Who cares? Why are you talking about this? It's like, then you are allowing people to get taken advantage of. You're allowing nefarious people to potentially take advantage of others at that point. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Would you be comfortable? Would you be able to do a podcast like this and not call out some of this stuff?
Oh, no, you've got to be able to call that out, because it's the sort of thing that people get trapped up into. They see a flashy video, or they see a plastic shell or a rendering of a plastic shell that they think looks nice, and they go for it. And it's not like we haven't been, caught up in, and we weren't caught up, but we talked about that one, I think, years and years ago, the Vega, that was like the portable
Spectrum one?
Spectrum.
Yes, we mentioned it.
That looked neat, and it ended up going nowhere. These things have more failures than they do success.
Oh yeah, it's hard. It's actually we talked about that all game controller that a lot of people didn't get that. Yeah. It's almost like you really got to think of the ones that were actually a success when it comes to hardware, and it gets difficult.
The new Mini Spectrum, I believe, has a lot of people who are excited.
Mini Spectrum, they're doing another Spectrum.
I think it's one of those.
Excuse me, ZX Spectrum.
ZX.
Don't get mad at me.
Apparently, there's a pretty decent homebrew community for it.
Was that on Kickstarter?
I can't recall. Like I said, I'm not super into it. I mean, you look at stuff like the Poly Mega, which, if apparently shipping now. Is it actually shipping? If people started to get those,
supposedly our pal Dan says he got a notice saying it's on the way. Okay, we'll see.
So they finally got that, but that took them 4 years.
3 years.
So even a success, 3 years, even one that finally came through in the end, took a lot longer than I think people initially thought it would.
And that changed what the original vision was as well. Even like the final hardware project, it wasn't what was originally intended.
Right.
So again, it's tough. It's not like a company like Analog's been around now for over 10 years. That's put out a lot of successful
so you
projects.
see companies like Analog that have succeeded in this way. Okay.
But they walked before they ran.
Right.
They did Neo Geo controllers way back in the day.
Right.
Before they did the original NT that was hacked from Famicoms, for example. But you really got to be careful. You also have to be careful that these companies. It would be awesome if all these companies, crowdfunding hardware is tough for a lot of different reasons, because at that point you don't have money to sustain it after the original. You want to say investment in the company. You're helping to build that company, right? So all the people that pre-ordered $100 for the Amico are helping to build the company up. It's a pre-revenue company. I guess there's a difference between a pre-revenue and a revenue company. With a revenue company like Analog, if you're pre-ordering that, they have money already from their past successes. They're sustainable. If something tragically happens to their current product or whatever, they can probably still survive and go on, and even do refunds. A company like Intellivision or a startup, they don't have the funds necessarily if something goes wrong. They might just disappear. They may not. Potentially, they may not be able to refund your money.
Television is a startup, and that's another thing that we need to bring up. That a lot of people are eager to support these things because they see the names they remember from their youth or their teenage years attached to them. So they see Intellivision, they see ColecoVision attached to these things. They see Atari on
Coleco,
something. They see Coleco, they see Atari, they see Intellivision attached to these things, and they think, oh, it's for my use, but it's not. It's an opportunistic person who spent money on a trademark.
Not to get back to how much the CEO of Intellivision Entertainment is a fucking liar, but I remember earlier on when we said this had nothing to do with the original Intellivision and Mattel. Tommy called us out and said, "Oh, we have some of the original people that worked at Mattel at the time." The fucking SEC filing on Republic straight up says this company has nothing to do with Mattel and the original Intellivision console in the 80s. It says that on the fucking prospectus. The government filed SEC prospectus says that.
Yeah, well,
to warn investors, it says that.
That was a very specific era of Tommy Tallarico where he lied through his teeth about anyone he might have said hi to once.
Yes. So again, but a lot of the people that buy this stuff, they may not know. Oh, I see Intellivision. Well, I remember having Intellivision when I was a kid, even when that was a product, not a company that made it.
Right.
So I'm just going to assume it's the same people again. So there's a lot of hurdles, and unfortunately, and I saw someone, a really intelligent person that I respect on Twitter, sort of get, I don't want to say blind by nostalgia, but get overly enthusiastic, perhaps, about the Amico, because, hey, you remember when you were a kid, you had a lot of fun. You want to relive that. And it's so easy to get taken in by that feeling. Nostalgia. We talked about how we talked about if nostalgia is even technically like a poison in a way.
I always feel like nostalgia is poison, and it always gets people who are angry at me. They always take me extremely too serious. But yeah, overall, I think nostalgia is more poisonous than it is beneficial.
Well, but it can make you feel good. It's almost like alcohol is technically a poison. It can make you feel good. Too much of it can kill you, or make you throw up the same way, right?
Nostalgia. My biggest problem with nostalgia is too much nostalgia holds people back. They refuse to try new things because they're too wrapped up in making things the way they were. They're not paying attention to living in the here and now.
My problem is that nostalgia can not help you evolve as a person potentially because you want to stay trapped in that certain time as well.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay. When you say move, I thought you meant move forward like games and things like that.
No, I mean it traps your mindset in the past. You are not open to new experiences. You are not open to evolving.
Oh, not just for games, I mean in general.
I mean in general, yes.
Okay.
Most people who are really into the 80s in terms of games also talk a lot about how they wish that it was still the 80s. I mean, I see people like that all the time.
but for other reasons, but yes.
I know.
I love the 80s. Bring back the...
I'm happy with the social advances we've made, as small as some of them may feel.
But not in fashion or music. Well, give me the fashion and music at least. Give me that.
Okay. No.
You think we're better off with social media and Instagram?
I think moving on is always beneficial as opposed to staying in the past.
All right. I want the music. I want the music and members only jackets back. All right. Give me that.
I like a members only jacket.
Oh, okay. See, we can agree on that.
That's
fine. So anyway, just to put a little bow on this. It's important to call out these projects because of accountability or lack thereof. Delivering what is promised, which goes into accountability, but a lot of these don't deliver what is promised, especially if it's an Indiegogo, which doesn't require a hardware prototype or a Kickstarter. And clouding your judgment, it could happen. Yeah. So my recommendation is don't. I'm not saying you can't want these sort of products or get into them. Wait until they are released. Wait until there's a track record with the company at least that they've done prior projects.
Yeah, I see things all the time that kind of grab my attention, but you just gotta fucking be cool about it.
Just gotta take a step back. Okay, I like that. Like the old days, Ian. Back in the old days, you wouldn't know a product was coming out, a toy or game, until you saw it in your Toys R Us circular.
Or saw it in your brand name's Christmas book.
There you go, in your service merchandise catalog.
Brand names home for the holidays.
We didn't have that one, but okay.